Greetings, all rational thinking human beings from across the planet Earth. Welcome to the second episode of Paul Elam's version of News and Activism, AVFM News and Activism, that is. And I am with also, as always, Mr. James Huff, who's been running AVFM radio for, since before I had gray hair, isn't it, James?
I think so.
Yeah,
Been a while now.
That's a long fucking time, man.
I think I was part of the operation in early spring of 2012, and you promoted me to director that April.
Yep, and you've been doing a fine job ever since. It's too bad that we had to lose Robert O'Hara, but people move on and do things. I'm sure Robert's doing great things, and wherever you are out there, Robert, I hope you're happy and doing well. Well, let's not even delay anymore. We got some news to talk about, and the first thing that's going to happen is James is going to read us a news story, and then we're going to talk about it. What do you think, James?
Sounds good to me. This is coming out of thecollegefix.com. Sex partner must say yes every 10 minutes or it's rape. 10th graders taught in California. Now, it won't be long before college compliance officers are earning seven figures, judging by the confusing education that high schoolers are getting on sex and consent. The New York Times reports that 10th graders at a high school in California are learning to keep time during any intimate encounters, so their encounter doesn't slip into rape. Consent from the person you are kissing or more is not merely silence or lack of protest. Shaifa Zaloom, a health educator at the Urban School of San Francisco, told the students. They listened with rapt attention, but several did not disguise how puzzled they felt. Well, what does that mean? You have to say yes every 10 minutes? Asked Aiden Ryan, 15, who sat near the front of the room. Pretty much, Miss Zaloom answered. It's not a timing thing, but whoever initiates things to another level has to ask. Well, of course, it's going to turn into a timing thing. If the choice is between every 10 minutes or the wildly subjective initiates things to another level. This is the new normal in California because of sex ed changes signed into law by Governor Jerry Brown this month that require classes to teach affirmative consent, or yes means yes. Everyone's favorite gadfly on today's wacky new rules for campus sex, George Washington University law professor John Banzef, tells the Times this is not at all helpful. The affirmative consent standard is not logical. Nobody really works that way. The problem with teaching this to high school students is that you are the only one going to sow more confusion. They are getting mixed messages depending where they go afterward. And that confusion is evident in Zaloom's class. The students did not seem convinced. They sat in groups to brainstorm ways to ask for affirmative consent. They crossed off a list of options. Can I touch you there? Too clinical. Do you want to do this? Too tentative. Do you like that? Not direct enough. They're all really awkward and bizarre, one girl said. Did you come up with any on your own? Ms. Zaloom asked. One boy offered up two words. You good? That drew nearly unanimous nods of approval. And it almost certainly wouldn't hold up in the typical campus adjudication, because an accuser could say that she was just giving robotic answers out of fright. And an accused student will probably be told he misread her nonverbal cues, which overrode her literal words. Zaloom, by the way, has written a curriculum for affirmative consent programs that is being used throughout the country, the Times reports. Consider getting any California college-bound males in your life a stopwatch for Christmas. So, Paul, go ahead and open up this discussion. This is just a huge bag of nasty boogers.
Well, can I get the funny but obvious out of the way first,
Sure,
James?
go ahead.
Well, you know, first of all, what I understand of teachers in California and teachers unions, they can't teach 10th graders to do math, much less to monitor a sexual encounter in that way. We're talking about people that aren't even teaching their students to read or write or do arithmetic, now in charge of their sex lives and teaching them aspects of that. And of course, I have all sorts of vulgar scenarios going through my head. I mean, if your cock in a girl's ass is not affirmative consent, what is? I mean,
or,
how
or
many
better
fucking
yet,
sentences?
how do you interpret affirmative consent if all you're hearing is
Yes, excuse me. Take my cock out of your mouth for a moment and ask if it's okay to keep sucking it. I mean, and I guess depending on what they're saying, it depends on who initiated the blow job.
there you
Uh,
go, yeah.
Went after him to suck his dick. Does she have to stop just before he climaxes because the 10-minute mark is there? And by the way, how does a fucking 10th grader last 10 minutes anyway? I sure as hell couldn't in 10th grade. I couldn't last 5 minutes with the right thought in my mind.
Well, you got to understand it. It all starts much earlier nowadays, from what I hear. So,
But let's I mean there's a million jokes that we can make out of this, and some of them would actually be pretty funny. Not near as funny as yes means yes is to begin with. That is funny. That is the joke. But there is a side of this that, of course, is not very funny at all. What we've seen with since Dear Colleague, and this does go back to Dear Colleague, folks, to make no mistake about it, when Obama's administration issued through their Office of Equal Opportunity the Dear Colleague letter telling universities that they would have their federal funding withdrawn unless they lowered their standards of proof on sexual assault allegations from what was always referred to as clear and convincing evidence. Now, that's not the same thing as beyond a reasonable doubt, but it is a very high standard of proof in order to convict somebody. Now they've been forced to reduce that to preponderance of the evidence and taken away the accused's rights to defend himself, to cross-examine his accuser, to present evidence on his own behalf. He's supposed to just show up and listen to the accusation, and then the tribunal decides whether or not he's more likely guilty than not. This is a railroad along those lines, and now they're breeding that into the mentality of our high school students. What this is about is setting up young men to be terrified of young women, just like Dear Colleague did. It is setting up young men to not trust young women, and they shouldn't. As long as we're going down this path, this is just another way that feminism has reached in and widened the gulf between men and women, and now they're doing it with our kids. I'm not, I'm not going to joke too much about this anymore. There are aspects of it that are very, very funny, but what this is about really, and shame on Jerry Brown for even considering signing something like this piece of garbage into legislation. Shame on him for not vetoing it. Shame on the California Senate for introducing the bill to begin with. What we're doing is taking school teachers who have proven not to be able to tie their own fucking shoes, for Christ's sake, and telling them to get in between boys and girls over a matter that is determined by 3 million years of sociobiological programming. Human beings have managed to have sex with each other and to know what rape is and what rape isn't for generation after generation after generation. And they're concocting a rape out of consensual sex here. Nobody in the throes of passion, as we all know, if you're making love, you're in the throes of passion, you are not going to stop.
This is the same society that will take a 6-year-old and process him for sexual harassment, sexual assault for merely kissing someone else.
Which they did, I believe, in Chicago, was it, James?
Yep.
They put sex offender on his school file.
Yes, they did.
Because he kissed a little girl
Mm-hmm.
at school. Man, I don't know, and I say this figuratively for the quote miners. I don't know what's left for these people but the gallows. I really don't. These are some really sick, toxic people that are now aiming to infect the minds of our children. And right now I'm feeling like Jerry Brown should be at the head of the list. But
well, look at the radical feminist agenda. Look at what they want. They want complete segregation between the sexes. They've never made that a mystery at all. They want complete segregation of the sexes in every way. And this is exactly what these touchy-feely policies based on absolutely no evidence at all lead to. And they're doing it, interestingly, not just by the force of the state, but by through the very things that affect humans on a deeply personal level. Feelings of ostracization, feelings of shame and guilt. That is exactly what they're doing.
And let's take a look at that for a moment, James. I mean, if we're going to be really brutally honest about where this shit is coming from, if you've ever been to talk to Michael Peratt sometime or Karen Strawn about their experience at the NOW convention, and what you see, and these are the people that are pushing things like this, is a bunch of women that have heavier beards than I do, that are porcine and bovine, and whose lives reflect exactly the type of feelings that they're trying to instill in young boys. Shame.
I will add one other category to that. Okay, to move it beyond looks. Those who seek the profit from it. Look at it. I mean, at the very beginning of this news story, it won't be long before college compliance officers are earning 7 figures, judging by the confusing education that high schoolers are getting on sex and consent. There is a lot of money tied up in this. You're looking at all these nonprofits who are skimming off the top, going around the country, creating these speeches. And look, in order for them to make money, they have to sell one thing, and that is fear.
Yep. And they've been doing it with every issue. They do it with domestic violence. They do it with all issues. This is not, every feminist issue is rooted in trying to instill fear of men and self-hatred in men across the board. And I think I would go back all the way to Robert Bly. People laugh about the mythopoetic movement these days, but you know, I did a lot of reading. I read Sam Keen, and I read Robert Bly, and watched videos of the stuff that they were doing in Austin, Texas back in the day. And what he said even back then, that radical feminists were a bunch of women with daddy issues. That these are women who felt rejected or abandoned or disapproved of by their fathers, and they're taking that crap out on the society around them as a matter of pathology each and every day of their lives.
I can really believe that. I can really believe that of your second and early third wave feminists. Okay, when we look at those who are at the pinnacle or at the top, the ones who everybody else looks up to and says, "La la, these are our saviors." However, I'm going to stress this. I really think that the majority of the work is no longer motivated by simple ideology. I'm beginning to think that the majority of this is motivated sheerly through profit. Because, yes, you may have started the movement based on these puristic ideological influences. You had them gathering in their coffee houses. You had them gathering in their middle class homes, screaming and railing at the world. But look at what's happened since.
Oh yeah,
It's
I'm not doubting it. But what I'm saying is that while you've got Sarkeesians and Marcotts and Valentis out there who have monetized this fear narrative for sure, and they aren't the ones that I was describing, but they're funded. They get their money. The underlying force of financing of this now comes from insecure women with severe personality issues and severely lonely lives, and the white knights that would like to protect them. So we've got a few who have risen to the top and learned to monetize all this fear, but the fear itself, the pathology driving this stuff, I think is still absolutely a matter of many, many women in this culture looking at one toothbrush hanging in the stand in the bathroom, wondering why men can't stand them and won't listen to them for more than 5 minutes, and having daddy issues. These are the ones that I think really primarily pumped up Anita Sarkeesian's threat narrative fundraiser. The money that you're talking about is real, but I think that it comes mostly from women who have daddy issues, who have issues with men, who can't keep a man, who don't know why they can't keep a man. And of course, if they had 5 objective minutes in their lives, they would see that nobody would pay attention to them. If
Oh, you still there, Paul? Or am I losing you? Uh-oh. Looks like Paul might be having some problems there. I will concede the point that perhaps a decent amount of this funding is rolling through. Paul, if you can, come back with us as soon as possible. Just a second here.
what's that?
Oh, there you are. Okay, you're back. Yeah,
Was I gone?
Yeah, you were
Well,
gone.
by the way, if it had cut me out, that was the most brilliant talk I ever gave in my life. If you didn't hear it.
It cut you out right after you made the point about the funding, where it's coming from, I'll concede that
Did
point.
elaborate. Yeah, I just elaborated on that. I didn't say anything else of any
Okay.
significance. It's about the money, and it's about women who hate themselves and hate men and hate women who have men and who hate really attractive women. You ever look across the spectrum of women that are now involved in one way or another in men's rights, and even on the periphery? You've got women like Lauren Southern, Cassie J, others. They're hot. These are good-looking women. They don't have problems with men. They have problems having too many men, if anything. Um, and it amazes me that women that feel sexually adequate and feel comfortable in their own skin and don't need to be victims in life somehow don't turn out to be feminists. Um, just saying, it's worth looking at.
Well, I think they're going to keep pushing it. I think it's going to. I think this 10th grade push here is going to end up going back to 8th grade. I think it's going to end up going back to 6th grade. And before long, you'll be giving the same lessons to those 6-year-olds who will be charged with sexual assault as soon as they kiss someone on the playground. You know, because.
Oh, and let me say something. Let me piss a couple more people off with this, James. If your 6 or 7-year-old child boy comes home from school and tells you that he's being taught this stuff in school and you say nothing, as far as I'm concerned, you're a child abuser. You're a wreck of a parent, mother or father, who hears this stuff come out of your child at home and in 10th grade too. And if you're not down at the school telling them you're not teaching my children this poison, then you're a shit parent. Period. You've got no other excuse. This does come down to what parents tolerate.
Absolutely.
And if they won't get off their sorry asses, if they got their son coming home saying, well, what did you learn today in school, Johnny? Well, I learned that if I'm ever in a sexual relationship and the sex lasts more than 10 minutes and I haven't reaffirmed consent, that I'm raping somebody. If you're going to allow that to pass for your child's education with saying nothing, shame on you. So I'll get off my soapbox about that.
Personally, I think that is the purview of the individual family to teach those types of values in any case. But, you know, this is 2015. This is probably the point, one of the worst points we've seen in about 100 years, that children were not being taught values by their parents directly. So there you go. Welcome to the nanny state, because that is exactly what it is.
Sure. And now your children don't belong to you anymore. Your schools are going to teach them what their sexual values will be. It has nothing to do with the sexual values of the parents. They don't have anything to say anymore. And it may be, hey, James, you know what? If they did it right, it might be a good idea, since parents don't seem concerned about anything about their kids anymore when it comes to what they're taught. They're just concerned about what grades they get and what school they're going to get to. And if that's all they care about, if they don't care about the moral development, if they don't care about how their character is being stained, then, you know, they're not worth shit as parents. But anyway, I'm going to get off the news story before we do our interview for this evening. I would sure like to talk about that.
Oh, go for it. What have you got?
Okay, let me see what I got here. I need to pull this up. Oh, I just found your lost audio message. I don't think I lost it. I think it was a patriarchy. I want to talk about the other end of this garbage. This is from an NPR story entitled, "For Students Accused of Campus Rape, Legal Victories Win Back Rights." Because now, with all this craziness going on of a girl in college saying, 4 semesters ago, I was at a party and he touched my breast without permission. Rape! Whether it happened or not. And then he ends up having his academic career ruined, his reputation ruined. He's kicked out of school. He's not allowed back in because why? Because he's not allowed to defend himself against a charge. He's not allowed to tell them, as the case has been in some of these things, hey, I wasn't at that party. Or, even worse, like Emma Solkowitz, there was no party. It didn't even happen. But the students cannot defend themselves with that. And now, instead of depending on the college for justice, which these administrative cowards, and let me sort of restate that. I understand the pressure. These guys are administrators that have been told, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you're going to lose all your funding. I know that there's pressure on them to produce rape victims. But since they happen to be doing that at the expense of innocent young men,
Uh-oh. Paul, you're breaking up some.
I don't care about their pressures. But this story...
Oh, boy. Yeah, it sounds like we've got some serious issues here. Paul, you are breaking up. Something fierce there. Might want to check the internet connection.
Am I breaking up again?
Oh, it's bad. It's real bad, yeah.
Oh, man, this sucks.
Yeah,
can you hear me now?
You'll get roboticized every now and then you'll lose the audio, and you have a slight echo every once in a while. But
Well,
But
my
yeah,
apologies to listeners. I am out of state right now. I don't have my normal setup, but I will be back next week. So let's go ahead and run through this and hope for the best, James.
sure. You want me to go
Well,
ahead and take it?
I tell you what, yeah, if you would go ahead and read that story from NPR.
Not a problem. Here we go, folks. For students accused of campus rape, legal victories win back rights. College students can't miss the warnings these days about the risk of campus sexual assault, but increasingly, some students are also taking note of what they perceive as a different danger. Once you are accused, you are guilty, says Parker Oakes, one of several Boston University students stopped by NPR between classes. We are living in a society where you're guilty before innocent now. Xavier Adsera, another BU student, sounds a similar theme. We used to not be fair to women on this issue, he says. Now we're on the other extreme, not being fair to guys. As colleges crack down on sexual assault, some students complain that schools are going too far and trampling the rights of the accused in the process. In recent months, courts around the nation have offered some of those students significant victories, slamming schools for systems that are stacked against the accused. Schools are overreacting, says a student from the University of California, San Diego. People like me are always getting hurt. The student, who was suspended last spring after a fellow student accused him of sexual assault, asked to remain anonymous to protect his reputation. He says he was shocked by the accusation, denies any non-consensual contact. He and his accuser had been hanging out, texting, partying, and studying together on friendly terms for months after the alleged assault, he says. And he says he still has text messages to prove it, including her messages asking to come over to his place and share drinks or pregame together before a party. But he says he never had a chance to make his case because the school wouldn't let him introduce his text messages as evidence, challenge the investigator, or effectively cross-examine his accuser. I was so angry because that was really my sole opportunity to defend myself, he says. So, he took his case to court, filing as John Doe, and won what's being called a landmark ruling against UC San Diego. The judge said the school's process was unfairly skewed against Doe and ordered the school to reinstate him. While the court respects the university's determination to address sexual abuse and violence on its campus, wrote Superior Court Judge Joel M. Pressman, the hearing against the petitioner was unfair. I was ecstatic at that point, Doe says. It kind of took some, for a judge to come out and make the decision that they made, because every single point that we raised about unfairness and lack of evidence the judge agreed with. A case like this makes for a really easy lesson to say this is what not to do, says Western New England University Law School professor Aaron Buzovis, who blogs about sexual assault and also consults to universities on how to handle allegations. The San Diego ruling is one of a recent flurry of decisions, slamming schools for systems stacked against accused students. In the past few months, Middlebury College and University of Southern California were both ordered to reinstate expelled students. So was the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, after a judge ruled the school was basically upending a fundamental principle of justice by making an accused perpetrator prove he wasn't guilty. I've looked at what a university has done and thought, oh gosh, what are you thinking? Bazuva says. Some 50 challenges lodged by accused students are now in the pipeline. That's up from about a dozen just 2 years ago. Even one of the more brazen lawsuits, which claims a kind of reverse discrimination in federal court, recently logged a rare, albeit preliminary, legal victory. The case against Washington and Lee University argues that overzealous administrators who are using Title IX to crack down on gender discrimination and sexual assault are actually violating the federal law at the same time by systematically discriminating against men. Most such cases filed in federal court have failed to get out of the box, but a judge allowed the claim against Washington and Lee to at least survive a first hurdle. At the same time, public conversation around campus sexual assault is beginning to put more focus on due process for accused students, and many campuses have been adding new protections for accused students, like the right to an attorney. Joe Kahn, who's been advocating for the rights of the accused with the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education, says he's heartened by the two new bills on campus sexual assault, which include robust due process protection. The bills are the Fair Campus Act and the Safe Campus Act. He says he sees it as a victory, that he, as an advocate for the accused, was invited to testify at a recent congressional hearing, but once there, he says, he was struck by how much more the pendulum has yet to swing. At the hearing, Democratic Representative Gerard of Colorado wondered aloud why campuses don't decide cases using a lower standard of evidence. I mean, if 10 people are accused and under reasonable likelihood standard might 1 or 2 did it, it seems better to get rid of all 10 people, he said. Polis has since walked back his comments, saying he went too far by implying that I support expelling innocent students from college. But Kahn says he continues to be dismayed that the comment was made and that it drew applause. We are a ways away from reaching the kind of equilibrium that will provide fundamental fairness to everyone involved, Kahn says. In some ways, advocates say accused students are following much the same path that the victims did, first suffering silently, thinking they're the only ones, then slowly connecting with others, then with attorneys, and eventually becoming a force to be reckoned with. The irony isn't lost on us, says Sherry Warner Seafield, a founder of a group called Families Advocating for Campus Equality. The parallels are uncanny, frankly. Warner Seafield started a group a year ago after her son was suspended for sexual assault and then won on appeal. Now Seafield says she can barely keep up with the calls from guys in the same situation. Many accused students see themselves as victims, she says, and they feel as traumatized as victims of sexual assault. If we dare to suggest such a thing, there are a number of people that go pretty hysterical about that, she says, but we know for a fact there is a huge amount of depression among students who have been accused and punished after a hearing that they claim was unfair. There have been suicides. It's really tragic. Warner Seafield says she's encouraged by what she sees as a new trend in the courts. She says there's no question that schools have historically had a problem, automatically doubting and blaming accusers, and she's quick to add that it's still an issue. But schools need to fix that, she says, without creating a new problem by automatically doubting and blaming the accused. So there we have it, folks. That is the entire NPR article. I hope you enjoyed that reading. Paul, want to throw in on this?
Yeah, let me throw in just for a minute or two. Now we're running a little over. We've got Sage waiting, and I do want to not keep him. He has a tendency toward fits of violent rage whenever he is disappointed, and we can't have that going on.
Yeah, that's what happens when you have soulless individuals.
Yes, it is. It is, but you know, hey, you don't go to war with the army you want. You go to war with the army you have, and we have Sage Gerard. But no, let me just say a couple of things about this. One, I mean, this really does make me happy. Make them pay. Make the bastards pay. Not just get reinstated, suing them for damages for what they're doing. Because what they're basically, and these administrators, every last one of them know what they're doing. They know they are taking an individual who's been accused of something, and in most cases where there is not enough evidence to even convince a grand jury in terms of a criminal proceeding, and going after them and ruining them so that they can fulfill these supposed Title IX obligations and prove to federal regulators and the people that are examining what they're doing about campus rape and saying, see here, here's the people we crucified. Are you happy now? And of course they are. So I think it's a great thing that they're suing. I do want to take one exception to something one of the students said, is that we used to be unfair to girls. No, we didn't. No, we didn't. Rape is a crime for which people have been beaten to death, lynched, even at the mere allegation, for hundreds of years. Rape is considered in this culture one of the most repugnant things that can happen, at least if it happens to a woman. We don't really tend to give a damn when it happens to men.
Oh no, then it's funny. Then it's funny.
Yeah, that's a joke, or it's a lynching, but on the wrong side of it. But to say that we've been unfair to women where it concerns the crime of rape is pure bullshit. There has never been a culture or society like modern-day America that gets as hysterical on mere accusation of rape as the United States right now. We have been more than fair to women. We have historically always been unfair to men. And this is just the tip of the iceberg of this story, because when you get into actual criminal proceedings, where, by the way, rape cases should be handled instead of by a bunch of kids and college teachers at a school, when you get into criminal proceedings, you have things like rape shield laws that further erode due process in the actual legal sense. Yes means yes is not the biggest abomination that's out there. Rape shield laws are right up there with it. This is a big topic. We're going to be coming back, I'm sure, James, to this more and more in the future. But that's my 2 cents worth at this point. Now, is it time that we bring the Raging Ginger on?
I believe so. Along with the Raging Ginger, we've also got Jacob. And Jacob has been invited by Victor, or Sage, I should say, by Sage to come on. We're going to go ahead and get Sage on right now. Come on.
Hey, how are y'all doing today?
Oh, just
great.
Fine.
How are you doing, Sage?
Excellent. And yes, I bring with me Jacob Doherty. He's an upcoming student leader at New York University that wishes to start a Zenmen chapter. And I wanted to bring him on in case he wanted to share his perspective and for you all to get a chance to meet him and ask him some questions, as long as myself. I don't know to what extent he wishes to participate, but if you all want to have him.
Let me just start by saying, Jacob, welcome to the program. Feel free to chime in at any time you want. We'd love to hear from you. With that, I want to move on. I mean, now, as long as we're talking about stuff that really has a really horrific impact on young men in college, I can't think of anybody better to talk to than Sage Gerard, because Sage is doing what we like to refer to as actually doing something about it. That's a really kind of important thing, rather than just sit here on a radio program talking about this tragic state of affairs that have befallen young men in colleges. And there's a lot more than just, dear colleague. There's the fact that young men are disappearing from colleges, that their attendance is down, their degree acquisition is way down, and continues to tumble downward in a very dangerous way. Then you have the fact of how young men are treated on campus with all this indoctrination that's passing for education. And Sage Gerard was an individual who said, he still is an individual, who said, I want to do something about this. We discussed it, made him Activism Director for A Voice for Men for collegiate activism. And he wasted no time in forming, to my knowledge, the first actively non-feminist college campus in American university history. And he is expanding that now, as is made evident by Jacob's presence in this conversation, who now wants to start a chapter in New York. So Sage, why don't you catch us up? Zenmen's the name of the organization. You guys are doing fantastic work. Catch us up. What's happening with you guys? Let everybody know.
Okay, well, just for some additional context for those who are new to Zenmen and its history, a very brief recap is I started the student organization called KSU Men on Kennesaw State University. That's about 30 miles north of Atlanta. We've moved forward to audit a corrupt self-defense course on campus that was treating men as if they were responsible for all violence against women. We lobbied the associate dean on campus for introducing a men's help program for victims of domestic violence, and we've hosted a conference called Male Students in Peril, which was wildly successful and had many leaders of the men's rights movement come down. I could go on further, but the student organization has since evolved, and due to KSU getting really upset about the acronym KSU appearing in the name, we had to avoid a trademark claim by changing the name. So we became Zenmen, and it went national. And Zenmen is basically now an incubator firm. That's what we're doing now. What we do is we help other students on campuses around the nation, and even outside the nation, as long as we're capable of doing it, do pretty much what we did before. We offer funding, advice, publicity, and whatever is necessary to build another men's rights presence on a different campus. We want to make it easier for this kind of thing to happen again. And what we're doing now, to answer your question, is we're organizing a new event called the New Sex Ed, where we're going to be teaching male students about the risks of false allegations, specifically on college campuses, and what tools they can use to either prevent a false accusation from happening, if at all possible, or to protect themselves in the event that they're in the crosshairs. And we're also organizing a Gamergate meetup in Marietta, Georgia, and tentatively the date is set to November 21st. We have to get approval from the venue owner, but we know that it's going to be happening sometime in November.
Well, is there anything you're not doing?
Well, it's
other than maybe
question.
Sleep. I'm sorry?
No. I was just saying it's an excellent question. I mean, we've been completely busy for a very long time, and in some ways it is nice when things kind of get slow during, say, the summer when no one's going to school. But at any given moment, we're always reaching out to students, connecting with new either whether it be attorneys, counselors, or so on, and just trying to make sure that we have a network so that if we can't solve a problem, we know someone who does.
Let me ask you something, Sage, and I promise you, you have my word of honor. I'm not going to try to spend any more than is necessary, because this is a story that you've been through a million times. You've been asked a million times. You've written about it. I've written about it. I've talked about it in places. But the experience, let's be frank, the experience of setting up KSU Men, now Zenmen, and holding a conference with speakers like Karen Strawn, Janice Fiamingo, myself, Jonathan Taylor, was not exactly met with, new puppies and balloons and cake at your school. Where are you standing with that now? I mean, we know the story. They went after you, tried to ruin your reputation, tried to paint a threat narrative around you at the school, called the police on you because you sent an email asking a question, all kinds of really obnoxious crap. Where does things stand now for that? Has life settled down for you a little bit?
Well, yes and no. I mean, yes, in the sense that right now I'm in my final semester at Kennesaw State. I'm graduating in December. And so I'm kind of just lying low, going ahead and taking care of my last course and getting it done. But no, in the sense that we are still, the New Sex Ed, that event, is occurring on Kennesaw State University. And we've been putting up posters and a big-ass banner in the Student Center to advertise the event, and we've had people come in and tear them down, write on them, and do all sorts of nasty things to make sure that we don't have a place to speak. So there's still a very hostile presence. In fact, have any of you heard of the mobile app Yik Yak?
No, but I have a feeling we're going to.
Okay, well, Yik Yak is this mobile application that's basically chat rooms based on your location. So if you were to open up Yik Yak on your phone, you will enter a chat room with people within, say, 15, 20 miles of you, or so many miles of you, right? So if you open up Yik Yak on Kennesaw State University, you're going to enter a chat room filled with Kennesaw State University students. And one of the fun things I discovered when I was over there was that if I open up Yik Yak and say anything about Zenmen, the campus community gets really, really angry because there's a largely SJW presence on Yik Yak, and they will downvote any post related to Zenmen into oblivion where it's censored. But you can post anonymously, and just as a little test, I posted something on Yik Yak where I stated my location. I was eating lunch one day, and I just posted on Yik Yak, the Zenmen founder is in the cafeteria. He's eating. Somebody should go say something to him. And that got upvoted because people thought somebody would come after me. Like, that's the kind of environment KSU is. And the professors are also pretty much in line with trying to get me either expelled or worse. And that, yeah, it hasn't changed. It's just I'm doing less about waving the red cape in front of the bull because I just want to get my degree and get out of here.
Understood, as well you should. So now tell us about the new sex education thing. And I'm going to make a pitch at the end of this, a shameless one, because there is a piece up about that right now in A Voice for Men that also has a link to something known on the internet as a donation button, which I am going to now, and after we talk about this, strongly urge people to go hit. But if you would please tell people about that, and I'm getting sound feedback, so I'm going to mute my mic for a moment while you talk. But please let them know all the details that you can about that particular event.
Sure. Okay, the new sex ed is a presentation that basically answers some vital questions. For example, what does a false accusation of sexual assault do to a man? What laws are in play? What can I or people I know do if we get falsely accused? How do we take power away from false allegations in the first place? And who do I call? It's all of these things that hover around false allegations of sexual assault. We also cover the emotional nature of the public and the mainstream media, and basically say, look, if you are a young man, you are in Salem, 1692 Salem. You are a subject of modern-day witch trials. If somebody ever points to you and says, this guy raped me, this guy touched me when I didn't want to be touched, and that's false, it doesn't really matter. You're still going to get pursued. The school may still move for disciplinary action against you, evidence be damned, and you need to have a way of protecting yourself until the laws change or the public calms the hell down. And it's just a matter of trying everything we can to keep young men informed that they are not invincible and that they are at risk of this happening. So we have to go in and tell these guys, you have to be careful, because you are worth something. And if you believe in yourself that you're worth something, then you will do what's necessary to get out of the way when something comes after you.
Now, Sage, you do have a goal, as I understand. Forget is rather special. Wow, we got. Well,
you're breaking up really badly.
Okay, let me try this again. Well.
Yeah, that sounds much better right there, whatever you just did.
Okay, we'll give it a try again. You do have, Sage, as I understand it, a goal for this event to have a particular speaker in mind. Is that something you can discuss?
Not in detail, but I can tell you that one of the goals of the fundraiser is to hire a victim of a false allegation. I went ahead and I spoke to, one of them is a celebrity, and I went ahead and I spoke to the campus coordinator, the person who organizes this person's speeches, and he told me, look, if we'll be happy for you to announce this person's name if there's a pre-existing agreement, but it would make it bad for relations if I were to announce his name beforehand. But all I can tell you is that we do have a goal up for hiring a victim of false allegations to come down and speak.
Okay, and it is a rather high-profile one.
Correct.
This is the reason I'm saying this, folks. Getting high-profile speakers like this is very difficult and very expensive. And matter of fact, at least I'm glad I knew enough not to mention names when I brought this up to Sage, because I don't want to blow anything for him or for the individuals who may be involved in speaking. But keep in mind the power, the potential power of a very high-profile victim of a false accusation coming to speak on this issue on a university campus. That sort of thing does cost money. I looked at the fundraiser yesterday. I don't know how it's going now. I gave money myself to the fundraiser,
And thank you.
and maybe doing it again. But I would like to encourage all of you who, if you can't do what Victor does, if you, Victor, Sage, I'm used to, this is the MRM. We all have 4 names. And I have 5 if you include arrogant bastard. But these things are expensive. If you can't do what Sage Gerard does, which, fact is, not very many people can. Not very many people are willing to. If you can't get out there and get into the trench wars, because it will cost you your job, it will cost you a marriage, it will cost you something that is just too dear to you to give up for that. And I know that there's guys out there that don't have a pot to piss in, and I'm not talking to you right now. But if you've got it to spare, AVFM doesn't ask for anything anymore except for $5 a month subscriptions. We're not raising the large sums of monies that we used to and applying that to activism. What we're trying to do is change a model where we support organizations like Zenmen and other organizations that want to put on, like Justice for Men and Boys, that want to put on events and do more with their activism. We like the idea of being their platform. So we're not asking for your money. So if we were in the middle of a fundraiser right now, and I know that there's dozens of you, dozens and dozens and dozens, so many people that have given $100, $150, $200, $250 donations, some into the thousands. If you're hearing this and you want to give a leg up on a great project, find the article. Don't donate it to A Voice for Men. Find the article that Victor's in has on Sage Gerard. God forgive me, I keep doing that. Find the article that Sage has up on A Voice for Men now. Read it about the new sex education. Find the donation button and give this hard-working MRA who has literally changed the course of things on campuses already with what he's done. We're not asking for people to give money for an unproven entity. He's already changed the world on his campus and put the ideologues on notice. He stood up to them right in the middle of the viper pit. He's taken the bites, he's taken the hits and the shots fired at him, and he stood strong, and he's still in their face doing it. Please, reach in your wallet and help this guy out. It's really important to do this, because if we're just going to leave him to twist in the wind, it'll demotivate anybody in the future from doing the same. And we're not a big enough movement to afford that. Now, I'm off of my shame box, and I'm really not trying to shame anybody, but I am trying to say, come on, guys, let's get in there and help Sage Gerard do what he does so damn well. And I would love to see a Zenmen group on 50 or 60 college campuses in the next 10 years. And I would like to see them raising all kinds of hell on those university campuses, continuing to change the narrative. But if we want that to happen, it's going to take a little bit of jingle to get that done. So please, get in there and give the guy some money and let him do what he does. End of rant.
Thank you so much for all of that support. All I can tell you as of this moment is that what we will do the best we can with whatever results we get from the fundraiser. The fundraiser does end in 3 days, and if after that point I will write an article saying how much we raised and what we can do given that amount.
Okay. Good enough. That sounds good for me. So, what would you like to see? I mean, it's obvious. It's easier to say something like, "I'd like to see 50 or 60 Zenmen groups in 10 years," and I think that sort of thing is within the realm of possibility. But what do you want, Sage? What do you want to see? Where do you want to see your life and your work at in 10 years?
I want to see a future where no Zen Men group is needed at all. I would like to know that the college campuses and the administrators are doing their goddamn jobs, and I don't need to have a presence on campuses reminding them what those jobs are.
That's pretty damn succinct.
I mean, it's just half of what Zen Men is about is going into people's faces who don't seem to understand basic human decency and reminding them what it's like to be over the age of 18. And it's incredible to me. It's incredible to me that you actually have to explain to people that, for one thing, taking a scalpel to a baby boy's penis and cutting off a bit of it is a bad thing. You have to convince people that lying about somebody's intentions could get them in trouble. You have to actually explain this very simple, common sense stuff. And it's not even just to students. It's to professors. It's to the people who hold degrees and for some reason are a source of interpretation for the government and the media. And so long as they create a need for somebody to come in and say, you know, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore, Zen Men's going to continue to exist. But I would much prefer sitting back and thinking, wow, I don't need to do shit because everything's okay.
Amen. I know that feeling well. There is nothing more, despite what a lot of people might think, there's nothing more I would love to do someday than pull the plug on A Voice for Men, because it's not needed. Because at that point, men will actually have a voice in all these matters that is weighed with equal gravity as women's. We're a long way from that, but I share in your dream, brother. I would love nothing more than to have the work that I do not be needed anymore. I just happen to think we're still a good bit away from that.
Correct. And if in 10 years there's still a huge presence of either a social justice feminist or in general priggish mentality, then I do hope that Zen Men has completely taken over educational systems at that point.
Yes, I have to admit, from a certain Schadenfreude perspective, that the idea of watching finally the day come where I see one person look over their shoulder before they say I'm a feminist, I would love to see that happen. The same way that we see people look over their shoulders before they tell you, at least most of them with any sense, before they say, I'm a white nationalist, I'm a Nazi, I attend Westboro Baptist Church. Those sort of people need to be looking over their shoulders before they talk. Just like every other form of hatred and bigotry, a phase they've had to go through before they were put in the shadows where they belong was that they experienced the lack of social approval of being that kind of individual. And we may not be able to fix the world, but I bet we can get that much done in 10 years.
And look, these people have every right to express those types of opinions and beliefs, but yeah, that doesn't mean we should institute it within our laws or the policies of the institutions of learning.
Oh yeah, I agree with you, James. That's why I participated in the I support Mustafa hashtag. I don't want to take anybody's freedom of speech away from them. I would just like to live in a society that hears somebody say, I'm a gender feminist, and they go, ugh.
Exactly.
In most cases.
Right.
Not just from us MRAs. We're almost out of time, and I don't want this to be construed as pressure, but I would like to ask Jacob, if he had had anything that he would like to add to this contribution, to this conversation.
Hello? You here? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hi. I was just thinking it was quite interesting to see on my campus how the conversations changed just ever so slightly. Because I think it's been so far in the sort of radical feminism ideology for such a long time. There are a lot of students who seem to be sort of pushing against that. Not in any kind of like active way, but if you just Google NYU men's rights, you'll see people who are saying like anti-feminist things, talking about how the wage gap's nonsense and things like that, and being accused of being MRAs. So there are people that are pushing back against the feminist narrative. It's just not, like you say, actually doing something and trying to start a group or trying to provide another narrative that's sort of more in tune with reality.
I think you just delivered us the best news we could have possibly had. I mean, there is, and we also see this, Jacob, in the mainstream media. What's going on right now, as a matter of fact, so many places, the narrative is starting to change. It's a gentle change. I mean, we went through a phase for years where feminists were like, "What do you mean men have problems?" To now, they're saying they went through another phase where, well, now, yes, men have problems and they're all caused by patriarchy. And now they're changing to finally recognize that men do indeed have their own issues and that there may be some things wrong with feminism as it's practiced, and that's beginning to become a part of the conversation. When we have that happening, we're well on the way to making all the rest of this happen. And yes, Mr. Zen, we do have time for one more question.
Okay. I would like to kind of pose a question to the group and to Jacob, since this is the first time I've.
Zen?
I'm sorry.
Yes, you had a question?
Yes, I was. I'm sorry. Was my mic muted for a second? Did I break up? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
I didn't hear you until just now.
I've got you just fine. Go ahead, Sage.
Okay, no, I was wanting to go ahead and pose a question to Jacob, since this is the first time I've actually seen him, or talked to him just through audio. I've emailed him back and forth, and from what I'm seeing, he's a very passionate young man who's ready to really buckle down and do some really hard work, and he's been going through the process of starting a chapter, and it looks really promising. But I would like you to ask you, Jacob, could you give us a little bit of an overview about what you intend to specialize in terms of your activism on NYU and what you plan to kind of do with it?
Yes, I've been specializing in activism. So I've written an article for the Zenmen site, and I've been going around some offices of teachers, professors, trying to find someone who's interested. I've got one professor so far that I've sent a proposal to. There's someone who seems interested in sort of pushing back against the kind of SJW narrative, who I'm going to try to speak to in a bit as well. Also, the medical center here put out a billboard, for like a portable billboard on the back of like one of those tricycles, in like kind of trapezium shape that went around New York from Intact America. So I know there are some people on campus who are interested in activism. Also, Jews Against Circumcision, they've done stuff here as well. Sorry?
No, I was just saying beautiful. Please continue. This is great news.
Yes, I've been basically just trying to go through articles, and I've bought a few books as well, just so I can build up an arsenal of arguments and points to put from sort of all angles and cover all bases. If anyone tries to sort of promote the idea that MGM is acceptable in any way, so I've got my arguments quite up to date and strong. So I'm just going to try and at the moment just raise awareness and get people interested.
Excellent. Just a bit of knowledge for you, Jacob, to consider in the future. We have acquired the URL, the domain for neonatalcutting.com, and AVFM is probably going to be putting 25 to 30% of its activism efforts into the area that you are. When that site is live, we're sketching it out now, getting ready to start building. We have a real good WordPress expert who has volunteered to build it from start to finish. This will be probably the largest warehouse of research and data on neonatal cutting available on the internet. So at any time, feel free to contact Sage or me, and when that site is complete, I will send you a link to it, and you can certainly feel free to draw on all the research that we're going to have there.
Sounds good. I'd love to do it.
Very good. And with that, folks, we are we're 4 minutes late. I absolutely assert that this was Sage Gerard's fault, but there's nothing we can do about it. Any closing thoughts from anybody before we say goodnight?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for having us on, and thank you for letting me take us 4 or 5 minutes over time. And I think it's going to be a very exciting future for men's rights and education.
I think it is too, and absolutely apologies on this. We'll have to have you back once I'm back in Texas and have the proper setup so that we don't have the audio problems that we had tonight. But this is something, and hopefully, Jacob, too, your activism, maybe you can come back and visit with us too. Let us know how things are going, and see if there's anything that we can do to help you both further this really good work. And in the meantime, I do believe, if I'm not correct, that there's something people are supposed to do, and James is here to tell you what that is.
Absolutely, folks. Always remember to take the red pill.